guys, so we're back looking at the Nova. I made a video on the fuel system. It was kind of a short, too short maybe, quick description. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this a little different, or maybe with more detail. So again, with the history of this car, it's a 69 Nova. It's got a S&W race cars ladder bar back half in it. It was a car that was hit that I bought in the late 90s, in my 20s. And it was a long-term project. And it kind of morphed. Initially, I was gonna build it into a leaf spring car, just a hot rod or a street car. And being a child of the 90s, I was into pro street cars, so and ended up wanting to build a drag car. So that's kind of what it ended up being as I bought parts up over the years. So the intent on this video is to talk about the fuel system in a little more detail and how we put this together. So the intent was to maybe see some street time. So with the electric fuel pump, that's why it has the bypass up at the regulator. So we'll look at that here in a minute. But anyway, fuel cell, standard, like a 10-gallon cell. This one I bought this one from Amazon. Initially, this car had a black plastic cell in it, and that cell, after a short time, the top started sinking in on it. So I pulled that out. So in the other video, you'll see pictures of that cell in the car. So that was pulled out right away. So this cell, 10-gallon cell from Amazon, and what I did was, so it was all -10 fittings in this cell. So you can see these are the original 10s that are just capped. So what I've got here, this is a rollover valve, -8, and then that goes to a bulkhead, 90-degree bulkhead, and on the other side of that is just a K&N breather filter. And then on the other side, we've got the pressure relief bypass off the Magnafuel ProStar 500 pump. Back to the cell, and then this line is the return from the regulator back to the cell. And then there we've got the two bulkheads going through the floor. This cell was upgraded with a billet cap. This had a plastic cap. I upgraded with the Jigs billet cap. And what I did here, I actually drilled it out and I used riv nuts or poly nuts, rivet nuts, to eliminate having to put nuts on the back side of that. It's mounted on some aluminum channels that are bolted to the chassis, and again using riv nuts to bolt it down. So I like the Amazon cell because it had these mounting feet already welded to the tank, so it was easy to mount that up. On this side, what we did is I used a hole saw that matched the OD of this -12 sump fitting, and I drilled out that existing -10, which matched this. Drilled that out and installed that -12 to the pump. This side I've got a -10 to -8 reducer, and then I've got this -8 hose. This actually goes into a bulkhead valve. You can see the valve handle on this side. So there, if I want to drain the cell, I just have to take the cap off underneath and open that valve, and I can drain the fuel out of the fuel cell. So on the plumbing side of the pump here, grab my light. Not the ideal situation with that 90, but with that tight space, that's what it is. Coming off of that discharge fitting, I've got a -3, that's actually a -4, I think. -4 hose going up to this fuel pressure gauge. So if you're working in the trunk, you got the car running, you can see what the fuel pressure is. So controlling this, or the power to this pump, we've got this relay panel that we built. So we've got power coming off of our main disconnect, goes into that fuse block. We've got two fused sources going to our relays. We've got the 12-volt switch source coming from the front of the switch panel in the car, and we've got a jumper connection there. So we've got two feeds going to the pump. Down below, we've got a ground bus coming back to the battery. I think that's a 4-aught cable on the floor there, coming off of that ground bus. Comes back to our main ground bus back here. So we pick up our grounds for our relays and our grounds for the pump. I'll cover the electrical system in more detail in a separate video at some point. But that's this in a little more overview. I'm gonna walk over to the table here. I've got some So this is the rollover valve that we used in the cell. If you're not familiar, so it sits in the cell. Here's actually our old cell that was in the car. But this rollover valve, if it rolls over, you got a ball in there. And that seals off so you don't have fuel running out of your vent. So the hose, the fuel line in that car, we're using this Earls Ultra Pro. This is a convoluted ptfe. So that's what it looks like with this black nylon cover. And then the fittings, see if I can do this with one hand, are similar to a standard A&N, but they have an olive. That's what that's called. That olive actually kind of screws onto that convoluted ptfe as behind your fitting, and then that all screws together. So they go together very similar to a standard A&N fitting such as this. Also in the cell, we've got these bulkheads with tubing. Let me walk back to the car here. So on these returns, you can see that pipes that return fuel under the level of the fuel in the cell. So the idea there is to prevent aeration of the fuel. So the only caveat to that is you don't want to pipe that back to the sump. So like on this black cell, we piped it back here. You want to avoid piping it close to the suction side of that pump. So under the car, we can look at that. Under the car, we've got a different ptfe. This is the Summit ptfe. So this is more of an inexpensive line. And I wanted to use that just in case I ran E85 or alcohol. And that uses more of a traditional A&N fitting as well. For a lot of this build, we utilized riv nuts. So if you're not familiar with those, it's kind of like a pop rivet, but it's a threaded insert. So you drill an oversized hole, and you can squeeze that rivet in there, and it's got a threaded hole. So all of our fuel lines are run and then bolted up to those riv nuts, through the chassis, and they're hung with these insulated clamps with a blackened stainless steel cap screw or button head. So that's how we did that. So I'll do a quick cut here and I'll get set up under the car. So here we are laying under the car. You can see these two. We've got the feed supply to the carb or to the regulator coming through our bulkhead here. This is the return, that dash 8 return back to the to the cell there. And that's that Summit ptfe line. And I don't know if you can see, yeah, there we go. Up there is a set of the clamps that I showed earlier. Another neat, I can show them up on the filter in the engine bay, but use these split clamps from All-Star Performance that mount onto a roll bar tube, and they've got a 1/4-20 thread to mount tabs or whatever. So here we've got the vent on the rear end. And then finally, here's the vent on the fuel cell. You get the bulkhead coming through and that K&N filter. And then here's the drain. So you want to drain the cell, take that cap off and open the valve. And underneath the car is all been sprayed with Raptor liner. So that's, this is all aluminum. And that's what she looks like. So I move to the front of the car here underneath. You can see the header turned down. It's more of our clamps with our Summit lines. Comes into a set of unions, and then where we convert to our Earls ptfe Ultra Pro lines. Then it runs up to a regulator. Okay, back under the hood. So like I said in that prior video, 1050 Holley HP. I can't remember who made the bracket. It's not a Magnafuel bracket. Obviously made for the 4500 Dominator, and then it fits the Magnafuel reg. So I've got that special fitting there with the 1/8 inch NPT on the inlet. So that's our high pressure bleed fitting on that side. And then the low pressure above it coming out of the regulator. Both our gauges, high pressure, low pressure. Feeding both bowls, and then the return coming out of those those 3/16 tubes. Wide block back into that -8 return. So I mentioned those All-Star Performance clamps. Man, this thing's dirty. I don't know how it gets so dirty sitting in the garage under plastic. So these All-Star clamps, again, these rubber insulated clamps from McMaster car to support that inline filter. So again, I put that, I had this inkling that I was going to try to street drive this car, and I don't know that that's going to happen, but that was the idea about the air bleeds. And typically that's used in nitrous applications and the nitrous regulators. The fuel regulators to the nitrous system, so you're not getting air mixed in with your fuel that leans out and causes problems when you're running nitrous. But so that kind of covers the fuel system. I think I'll do maybe brakes next. I don't know. Maybe comment what I should do next. What else? Oh, maybe I can cover this on this side. So that's a stock throttle cable, which is a little bit short. It works. It'd be nice if it was a touch longer. I think that's actually the 6-cylinder cable. Jigs bracket, obviously, with the Jigs logo there. I got a 1/2 inch spacer under the carb. I would have liked to go with a taller spacer, but I was limited by that throttle cable. So if anybody has any ideas on that, you can hear that. fancy light that I made. So yeah, fuel system. Again, 509 cubic inch big block, 13.5 to 1. We're running on Sunoco 110 Brodix intake. Yeah. Back to the table here. I think I covered everything. This is the channel we use. This is a stock channel I got from McMaster Car. That's what we're mounted on. Maybe I covered that already. Product engineering. They're actually a company out of Minnesota. They've been around a long time as well. I didn't run their, actually years ago I did buy a pump. I ended up selling it and ended up just buying a Magnafuel, but something that I probably would have done different. I probably would have ran their stuff. So that covers their, you can find that on their website. It covers that air bleed system. It's very similar to what I did, or is what I did. They talk about how to build your fuel cell. Magnafuel, you know, nothing too special there. Just kind of what I showed there with the relay and the pump setup. Special tools, yes. Where did that go? Right here. For doing this tubing work, this is a 37-degree flaring tool. So I use this on the brake lines as well. So you'll need that for, it's basically for hydraulic fittings. Is that plumbing special 45 or that double flare tool won't work. You need the 37 degrees. So that's got the 37 degree. See it down in there, 37 degree. So yeah, any questions? Leave in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, like, all those things. Trying to make some content here. Like to continue making these videos and maybe once we get back to summer here, maybe get this car out and see what it can do, because we finished this up this fall and really didn't get to do much with it other than get it started and running. So yeah, thanks for watching. Wanted to cover one more thing that I kind of glossed over. So these are actually multiple pieces, right? You've got the bulkhead, your bulkhead nut, and then you've got your tube, a tube sleeve, and a tube nut. So you got your piece of tubing, and that's flared with your 37-degree flare. Behind that is your sleeve, tube sleeve, and then behind that is the nut. So it's multiple components there. And again, that can be assembled inside the cell, get that below the fuel level on your returns. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks again.